Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Is that working? Okay. Hi. Hi. Cool. Thanks for staying around to the end of the day. I know it's been a long day and there's been a lot of really great talks. So thanks for inviting me. I'm here to talk to you about traditional game development, indie game development, and actually why you shouldn't really care that much about the difference. So my name is Ken Wong, and I've worn a few different hats in my time. I started out as a concept artist, and at times I've been a freelance illustrator. I've worked as an art director, and recently I've called myself a game designer, and following on from how, that's sort of self-imposed sometimes. This is a rough timeline of where I've been and the projects I've worked on. So I've been really fortunate to have worked around the world and on some really great titles, but I'm here mostly to talk about the last two games that I put out. Alice: Madness Returns, which was a PC, Xbox 360, PS3 game published by EA, and Hacky Cat, which is an indie game which I released by myself for iOS. So, we want to just get some definitions going. Roughly, I want to talk about these two ways of making games. So when we talk about the traditional game development model, we're talking about publishers, the relationship between these large publishing companies and the people who actually make the games, the developers. So the way it works, roughly, generally, is that the publisher provides funding to the developer, and in exchange for that, the publisher gives some opinions, gives some feedback, and possibly gets to own the title afterwards. In sort of opposition to that is this independent model where the developers say, like, you know what, I want to control my destiny, I want to make my own decisions, and I want to own the title at the end of the day. But that means finding people who are willing to give money without kind of getting any control, or just making do with less money. So this is Alice: Madness Returns. Has anybody played Alice? Great, excellent. So we made this at a company called Spicy Horse, based out of Shanghai, and it was published by EA, the biggest publisher in the world, I believe. That's what it looks like, roughly. I was art director on this project. So what does a publisher do exactly? How did they help out with Alice? So they give us the funding. In this case, EA was actually the IP owner of Alice. Alice: Madness Returns is the sequel to American McGee's Alice, which was published in 2000. So they kept ownership of that, and the designer, American McGee, who was my mentor, he set up this new company, Spicy Horse, and got EA to say, like, hey, let's make a sequel. Let's return to that world. And so EA is like, yeah, that'd be cool. Alice is still popular after all this time, and we'll fund the project if we get to publish it and sort of have participation. So along with the money comes due diligence. So the money doesn't all come at once. It's not like they give you the money and then they're like, all right, you go ahead and make the game and we'll see how it goes. They parcel out the money according to milestones. And so they actually flew to Shanghai and visited the company and got to know us and listened to our ideas about how we wanted to make this. And then they said, okay, well, you should probably hit these sorts of milestones and follow through with these ideas that you have in order for the funding to continue. So it's actually quite a fair proposition. They also give us a lot of advice. I don't mean this sarcastically, by the way. They really have a lot of expertise. EA have been in the business a long time. They have experts in all their fields. And so us being a new company, relatively young with a lot of new employees, we can always use advice and draw from their knowledge. They also provide some really great resources, like they have mocap libraries, they have mocap studios, they are friends with middleware providers, engine providers. So that relationship benefits the project in huge ways. And they also handle sort of the marketing and the distribution. So this allows us the developer, Spicy Horse, to focus on just making the game as great as possible. And EA worries all about that shelf space and release dates and not getting released at the same time as GTA, all that. So I want to talk about a couple of stories that kind of highlight how our relationship worked. At one point, I guess from the beginning, we were encouraged to make Alice as interesting and as colorful and as dark as we wanted it to be. Alice is a story about, it's sort of a dark interpretation of the fairy tale. So it's set in this gothic Victorian world with a lot of surrealism and a lot of blood and a lot of sort of mature themes. And EA were very keen to kind of push this. They wanted to see how mature we could take it. And at this point in the project, we felt like we had this understanding and this conception of what the game was. And funnily enough, we actually resisted that. And we feel like we're at the right amount of high-level content, and we actually don't want to make it any more violent or sexually suggestive. And we had some colorful arguments about this, and at one point, American McGee mocked this up and said, is that the kind of thing that you'd want in the game? EA handled localization, certification, distribution, marketing, all these kinds of things. So we were delivering for 3 platforms: the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. And that was quite a challenge for us. We'd never done that sort of thing before, but they were really great about helping us get up and running and talk to Sony and Microsoft about certification. It's a really arduous process, and so they helped with that. They also gave us advice about branding. This is another area where I feel like there's a bit of friction between the companies. The logo that you see on the left on the box is the one that they chose. I mean, we were actually not really keen on the name of the game. We had other ideas. We were quite happy to call it Alice 2, actually. But they kind of picked Madness Returns from a short list, and then out of all the logos that they could have picked, they were quite keen for that one. One of the reasons that I'm not really keen on that particular logo is there is a knife in the logo itself, and so now you have this cover with 2 knives on it. There's one in her hand and there's one in the logo. Wherever you put the logo, where it's positioned now, you have this knife kind of dropping from between her legs. We pointed this out to EA. They didn't really care too much. And then if you put the logo above her head, you've got a knife dropping down onto her head. That was our opinion. But this is one of those things where, as publisher, they kind of get to make the final call. I wasn't too keen on the concept of the box art either. I feel like it was trying to say, like, hey, we've got this, and we've got this, and we've got this. Not really leaving any mystique there, any mystery. But there you go. That's EA on the box. On the right there are some of the alternative logos. So if those don't work for you, then I guess perhaps EA made the right decision. So after all that, it was about a 3-year production from start to finish, and as per usual, we kind of pushed the budget a bit and pushed the schedule a bit to get things right. And to their credit, EA were quite supportive of that. They recognize it takes a lot of tweaking to get the game right. We released in mid-2011, I think, and it was already kind of a small release. We didn't quite get the marketing push that we would have liked. We released in the same week as Duke Nukem Forever, And in LA at that time, there was a lot of marketing everywhere. They were on bus shelters and on buses and on the convention centers, and they made an appearance at E3. And we were at E3, and there wasn't really anything for Alice Managed Returns. So don't know what was going on there. I guess they perceived that the game wasn't going to be as huge of a hit, and kind of held back a bit on the marketing. And as Emily was talking about, marketing is a huge component of the success of a game. So these are the Metacritic scores for the game, and you can argue about whether or not Metacritic scores really are that important, but these are the averages of the reviews of the game. So this is, it wasn't a spectacular success, but it was okay. And when I was making this presentation, I felt, I feel actually really proud about these scores because we worked really hard for it. I think it was quite an achievement for the team, and there you go. What I did feel really happy about was a couple of other things about the project. EA hooked us up with Dark Horse, who are a really well-known comics publisher, and they said, yeah, to help promote the game, we would like to make an art book. And me personally, having grown up reading a lot of art books and learning a lot about art direction and concept art from books like this, it was a real gift to be able to work on a book of our game and show a lot of our unused ideas and unused logos, that sort of thing. And then this is like a dream come true. Like in the first Alice, she has this very, very iconic dress, and one thing that we thought the fans would really appreciate in the second game was adding a lot of different costumes. And we were really hoping that cosplayers would get into it and help celebrate our world through the variety of costumes. And so eventually seeing a bunch of fans like really put all this effort into bringing that world to life, for me, that was like a huge reward for making this game. So in contrast to that, sometime after working on Managed Returns and subsequently leaving Spicy Horse and striking out my own, I decided I'd like to I always had this ambition to one day be a game designer, and one route into getting there is just doing the hard work, showing that you have the ability. So I thought, I can do a bit of coding, I can do a bit of art. I have this wonderful tool, Unity, and I can make a game by myself. So with all the experience I had, I came up with this idea. Do you have hacky sack in Norway? All right, so hacky sack is like a game that you play in the park. Hacky cat is like hacky sack but with cats, so it's kicking cats around. That's kind of what it looks like. It's on iPhone and iPad. So it's a game about kicking cats, iPhone, iPad. I wanted to, I was really interested in touch gaming, so I wanted to make something for that platform, something specifically touch-based, and I thought, oh, what's the simplest thing I can do? Well, touch some moving targets. That's pretty simple. I want to put it out for 99 cents. That seemed like a fair price. It's a bit more than free. It's not extravagant. For the most part, it was just me working on it. So, as I said, I can do a bit of coding and art, but there was lots of other stuff that I had to pick up on. Of all the ideas that I had, of all the game ideas that I've been thinking of all these years, always keeping lists of game designs, I thought this might be, one of the simplest, smallest ideas, and I thought, I'll be done with that in 3 months. And 3 months rolled around, and I'm like, all right, definitely before my birthday, definitely in 6 months, this game will be done. Altogether, it took around 12 months. That wasn't really full-time. I was moving around the world at the time, and I moved back to Australia, lived with my dad, so I wouldn't have to pay rent. And just, not stressing too much about it, but, basically 12 months. So, I did it for the adventure, right? I had saved up some money, and I wanted to see what it would be like to have all these roles. So I got to be programmer, artist, someone has to watch the schedule, make sure that things get done. So I had to kind of play producer to myself. Testing is really important, so I played the QA manager. I had to go out and show it to friends and show it to people I don't know and say like, hey, can you try this? Oh, why aren't you getting this simple thing? Community manager, right? Like reaching out and getting people interested in the game before it's even out, selling t-shirts even before it's out, setting up the Facebook page, setting up the Twitter account, speaking at a convention. Even doing the sound. I actually hired a sound designer, but I wasn't completely happy with his sound recordings. He was recording a lot of real cats, and as it turns out, real cats sound really horrible, or at least the way he was doing it. They were really screechy, and I checked out, is it freesound.org? And sure enough, all the cats on there sound really screechy. So the cat sounds in Hacky Cat are all me, just pitched up a little bit. And lastly, business development. So, it's important when you're making your own project or any project to set goals, like what do you want to achieve? And I think I wasn't, crystal clear on that at the start of the project. I would like to make money from it. I set a price point. But I think overall the two main goals were like I wanted to complete a project by myself. And I wanted to have that on my CV and have that in my experience so that I can get my next job. But still, sort of as business development, there was this goal of like, how much money can I make? What can I do to kind of maximize returns on my efforts? Part of the indie adventure, working by yourself especially, is sort of custom working hours. This can be very dangerous. I was working at home by myself, and so I'd actually learned to work when inspiration hit me or when the motivation hit me. So when, I was actually gone to a mood where I'm not a morning person, but I would get up in the morning and just like, yes, I get to work on my game. I'm gonna do this feature, which I think is gonna be a lot of fun. Other times I'd be like, I'm so burnt out, I'm just not gonna touch the game today. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that freedom. But I did have to make the effort to leave the house occasionally, sometimes eat food, have a shower, and sometimes talk to other people. That it actually required effort, to get out of the house. So it was all a huge adventure. And I got to retain creative control. There were lots of people who gave me great feedback for the game and great advice, but at the end of the day, it was always like, what is the game that I want to make? Costs. So if any of you have looked into Apple development, iOS development, at the minimum, you have to be part of the Apple developer program. $99 a year, that's not bad, pretty cool. Unity is free, but it has some restrictions. There's a few extra pro features that it doesn't do. One of them being that the Unity logo appears at the start of the game. And if you want your game to look professional, you got to have your own logo at the front. So for that, and also for the profiler, which allows you to see what's happening to your frame rate, that's why I made the splash to license the engine. But actually, it's I kind of left it until later in the development. I'm like, oh, do I really want to spend a few grand on this software? And at the end of the day, it's like you got to spend money to make money. And I planned on making more than a few $1,000s back from the project. So I thought, it's not too much. And Unity is a great piece of software. It's really definitely worth it. Towards the end of the project, I was spending a lot of time working on the game, and I'm like, I could make the trailer myself. I'm happy to learn Premiere or After Effects, but I don't have the time. And I have animator friends, and I got them to give me a pretty good rate, and they helped me. They did some custom animation and put the trailer together for quite a reasonable price. This photo is from AvCon. It's like a little games convention in my hometown of Adelaide. And part of the indie adventure was like getting to do this by myself and getting one of my friends to play Booth Babe. And so I got T-shirts made, and so I managed to sell T-shirts even before the game was released. Got this convention banner made up, handed out lots of business cards. And under costs, I include time because this is time when I could have been working in the industry. I could have been flipping burgers. I could have been working as a freelance artist, but it's time that I spent working on this game. So that's $0 cash, but it's my time, and I think that's what Emmy was talking about. Like, you can do a lot for $0, but there'll be people whose time will be contributed into getting your game made and marketed. So I spent $0 up front on sound, but I did promise him a percentage of the revenue. So that's sort of a cost that comes afterwards, and also to a marketing company that I partnered with. So similar to the trailer, I felt that I could be spending effort marketing the game, but I'd rather spend it working on the game, making the game itself. So I partnered with an external company, and they're a company called Surprise Attack, based in Australia, and that's what they do. They work on especially indie games. Have you heard of them, by any chance? Right, they're based in Australia. They actually work mostly for Australian clients. So kind of like how Norway has this budding indie scene, so does Australia. And they did a really good job of, similar to EA actually, bringing a lot of expertise to the table, like their experience in saying like, oh, this is how your app submission process works, and this is what you want from your trailer. Here's the keywords that you need, and these are the kind of keywords that work on the App Store, and you need this in your screenshots, and stuff that I really didn't know about even after doing research. But and they were really, really valuable in that respect. Marketing, important. And at some point, they asked me, do you want to make more money? That's part of the services they provided. You're only selling your game for 99 cents, and there's this thing called in-app purchases. So you get the game for free or 99 cents, and you can make more money by selling sort of premium content and premium features. And there's different ways to go about it, and it's kind of a touchy subject, is a way of putting it. I had planned to put in-app purchases in from the start. You collect cheeseburgers in the game, and that's what unlocks the content. And you can also buy burgers. You can buy packs of cheeseburgers, and it was really interesting. It was great when they sort of confronted me with, well, if you set it up this way, if you allow people to, spend $20 on cheeseburgers, and we push it in this way, then statistically you will see your money go up. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I don't quite feel comfortable. There's something about it, and I can argue it's like I didn't say it's immoral. I don't think that comes into it. But some part of me feels like I don't feel comfortable receiving money in this way for my little 99-cent game. So that was a really interesting experience, and it's at that point that it kind of concretely came to me that I'm not doing this for the money, I'm doing this for my personal satisfaction and for the experience, and money kind of comes after that. I want to be proud of it. I want to be proud of this game and say, it's how I wanted it to be made. That said, it's not very fashionable to reveal exactly what you made, but hey, this is my game. I get to do what I want. So this is actually how much money the game brought in. This is revenue. So this is before Apple's cut, I think. So you can see that there's a big peak at the start when the game was released, and that second peak is when I made the game free for a couple of days. So again, you can see that the sales went right down, and then hey, make it free, and then you make a lot more money. And then that long tail, like basically the past 6-7 months, is because I got a new job. I moved to London. I actually moved to London the day before I released the game. And I started a new job, and the reason I got that job is because I could talk about my experience on HackyCat and said that I know how mobile gaming works, and I've done all these little things. So that's why there's no activity there. If I didn't have a a new job, I would be doing an Android port. I will make you an Android port, and doing updates and such. And so you can look at that number and think, well, for 12 months' effort, it's not amazing, but it's okay. It's okay. I could just barely live on that. And I'd like to think that at some point, I'd like to have another go at doing an indie game. So we're talking about traditional. That was my experience of making a traditional game and an indie game. And obviously, one of them has to win, right? It's fight. But I think it's a lot more complex than that. There's advantages and disadvantages to either approach. The traditional publishing system, it does actually allow for larger budgets, and because you have these larger, rich companies, and then they're able to put some money into things that they believe in. A lot harder to drum this up if you're independent. They allow for larger teams, so it's more scalable. You can get hundreds of people on a team. But of course, that comes with risks. You have to keep all of these people employed. And of course, as I've mentioned, they bring access to resources and expertise. On the indie side, you get freedom. So, and this meant a lot to me, having done so much on, and actually I've had a lot of freedom working on traditional games. I've been really privileged to not just be an art director, but being an art director given the brief to just make it beautiful, make it special, make it yours. And people have very rarely said to me just tone it down and bring it back and make it ordinary and palatable. But with indie gaming, everyone gets that. The team kind of has to come in an agreement of how they're going to do this themselves. Obviously, you get to retain ownership of the IP. So I own Hacky Cat, and that feels great. It feels great that I get to put out merchandise and get that back, and I get to say whatever I want and show my numbers. And there's less overhead, so I didn't have to have an office to pay for. I didn't have any employees. It's just me and emails to my marketing company and to my sound guy. However, each project differs by many different things. Not just the funding method. Even within one company, with the same publisher, things change. There's different people. People matter so much. People makes a huge difference with every game project. Just getting along with people and not driving each other crazy while trying to make this thing that everybody's passionate about makes a huge difference. Perhaps more than just traditional and indie. For me, having done traditional first was a really great way to do it. It's great now that so many people are going to do indie first, right? They have all these ideas, they've grown up playing games, and the first thing they get to do is get together with their friends and just jam and make something, and it's going to be messy and incomplete and whatever, but they're going to do it without having sort of had this controlling company kind of tell them how to do it. That's great. But for me, it was great to do it this way because I got to learn all these things and learn from different people and see how a programming team works and see how producers work and how QA works. Yeah, that was my experience. And so, besides just this traditional model and the indie scene, there's actually a lot more going on. There's all these other alternatives. There's this amazing thing called Kickstarter, where people just give you free money. But that's evolving too, right? It's getting a lot more complex, and some of the projects that started out being crowdfunded are maybe not getting completed or not getting completed on time. But it's another option, right? There's incubation. It's where a larger company takes on a smaller company and says, "We'll take care of you. We'll give you advice, and we don't need ownership. We don't need anything back. We'll just take care of you because we love what you're making." You got teams within a larger company their job is just to come up with amazing ideas and prototypes. And obviously Double Fine have done this amazing thing where they say all right, everybody stop, we're just going to come up with cool ideas for 2 weeks. And they come up with brilliant ideas, and it's wow, that's such a great way to just inject creativity back into the team when they've been kind of so focused on one project for like 4, 5, 6 years. A lot of companies, they're saying, hey, you know, this publishing system, it's kind of broken. You know, you have these behemoths like EA and like Activision and Ubisoft, and you know, maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe there's more efficient ways or just alternative ways that we can develop cool products. And so there's this light publishing coming out where it's sort of the same, but just a little, they're asking for a little less. And maybe they're going to give you a little less money, but maybe the tools and the bigger audience are going to make up for that. You've got, you know, the platforms they're giving money to developers, and they're saying, we'll help fund your project, but you just be exclusive to our platform, at least for a little while. There's Valve. That doesn't make any sense. It's like nothing else. And there's my personal favorite, and I think it's what a lot of people have been talking about. It's the revival of the mid-core, of the game, which is not a behemoth, massive, hardcore game, and it's also not this tiny little indie thing. It's, you know, it's like the old days. Like you had a medium-sized team, and they're passionate about something, and they're going to make this thing which is not AAA. It's not extravagant. It's single A. It's A quality. It's like A is more than B and C, but it doesn't have to be ridiculous. I don't know why games have to be ridiculous. It's great to have a ridiculous game now and then, but for us developers, you know, it's great to be sort of efficient and have some limits so that you can operate within those limits. I feel like, you know, if there was a takeaway, it's that, you know, just focus on making great games. The indie scene shouldn't be so much of a scene, and traditional publishing shouldn't have this association with AAA. You know, we should, all money that we get comes with obligations. So even when I was, you know, living with my dad, that comes with, you know, I'm borrowing his car, and I have to help clean the house. And so forth. So, you know, when friends do you favors, you kind of owe something back. Whether it's Kickstarter or a light publisher or, you know, a friend lending you money or lending you time, you're always obligated to someone because they're helping create your game. In your career, every project will be different. And so, you know, don't feel like you have to make a choice. You don't have to choose, oh, I'm going to be an indie game developer, or I'm going to go for the security of, you know, having this larger company take care of me. I feel like everyone is going through this time of transition, and it's very common to change companies and for companies to change who they are. So, I mean, we're very fortunate that we're able to evolve our career very fluidly. More and more people are gaming, and you know, it's as we've been saying, it's not just teenage boys. It hasn't been for a long time. There's lots and lots of women gamers, games which are more suitable for kids, game audiences all around the world, and niche audiences. You've got your Napoleonic Wars gamers, and so this is great. These diverse audiences and these diverse gaming practices. You know, playing on the go. Playing online, paying without money, paying as you go, means that we can be a lot more diverse with our game development. There are many more ways to make games, and that's great for us. And so if there was this concept of traditional and indie publishing or game development, they're blurring together more and more, and it's almost like write your own rules. Let's all make games, and we'll figure out a way how. So that kind of leads to my current project, if I may talk about it a bit. I'm working at a company called Us2 in London right now, and the company is they call themselves a UX company. So they work on user experience. A lot of it is through apps, and they're about 180 people through 3 different studios. And they're doing pretty well in their business. And they said, you know what we want to do with this expertise and this money that we've accumulated, we want to make some games. We want to make some cool games. They made an amazing mobile game a few years ago called Whale Trail, which is why I joined the company. And so we have this team of 9 game developers. And of that team, 5 of them are working on this, Monument Valley, which is our work-in-progress game. And I'm doing the art and the design on it. And we have a lot of creative independence. You know, we're encouraged to just make it amazing, make it special. And with the emphasis, again, is not on the money, and that's a real gift. And it's a really different situation from what I've experienced before. I feel like it's the best of both worlds. We have, you know, this entity with funds and expertise, and they're just giving us the creative control and the freedom and the time to make something amazing. If you're interested in Monument Valley, you can follow us at Us2Games on Twitter. So that's about it for me. My name's Ken, and you can email me or follow me on Twitter there, or check out my artwork at my website. Thank you very much. We're at time for questions.
We have about 15 minutes for questions, so
cool.
if you just kind of pick your
All right, I think he had his hand up first.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just need to find one that works.
Okay.
Thank you. Very interesting to hear your journey through game development. I just wanted to hear more about publishers, because you presented a lot of benefits that they give to a developer. Mm-hmm. But it seems to me they have a really serious image problem, because when I think everybody up here, there's EA, Activision, you're scared of them. You'd want their money, but they're like the devil.
Okay.
Why do you think they have such a bad rep among a lot of developers? You're wary of publishers. You're afraid they'd screw you over.
Well, I think that reason is because they don't do the glorious work, right? They're not always the developers who are actually making the things that we see, but however, they are the teams who are supporting us. So kind of like how you can get angry at banks, and you can get angry at governments, and you can get angry at Facebook. However, you do use their services. And I mean, I hope I'm trying to accurately portray them as that they gave us a lot of benefits, you know, but it's not always visible to the gamers. And on the other hand, they do sort of ask for certain things in return, and maybe that's when developers kind of complain about it, and that gets out to the press. So I mean, maybe they do have sort of a PR image, but it's not always their fault. When they ruin SimCity, that is their fault. But that's another topic.
All right.
Hello.
Just a quick one on Hacky Cat. If
Yes.
you could change one thing about the way you developed it, what would you do?
If I could change one thing about the way I developed Hacky Cat, what would it be? I hadn't thought about that. I think because it's not like there's no going back. I mean, with mobile games, the tendency is that you listen to feedback and you respond to it. You release updates after you've released. And unfortunately, I'd already moved on, and I wasn't able to do that. But I feel like I did the best with what I had at the time. Like I did testing, and I listened to feedback, and I worked on it a lot longer than I thought I would. But that was okay. It was all part of the plan. It was all part of the plan to let it evolve naturally and not panic. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, actually. I learned a hell of a lot along the way. And I'm hoping that, once Monument Valley is done, that I'll get to return to Hacky Cat and make it on Android, Yingville. But until then, get it on the App Store, the iOS App Store. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, great presentation.
Thank you.
And secondly, nice to hear about someone who actually focuses on the experience of making the game instead of just earning money. Other than that, it's kind of related to Trevor? What was his name again? The guy? Huh?
Alex?
Alex, yeah. Alex's question. I'm wondering if you could do a Kickstarter, or I'm guessing you could. Why didn't you? And also, do you think the work would have gone easier, or that you would have made more money if you had a programmer on the side, or just one more guy to work with?
Why not do Kickstarter? Yeah, I mean, talking about image problems, I think Kickstarter, unfortunately, has its image is becoming distorted about what it's for and how it works. And I think the original concept of Kickstarter is to make things that could never get made otherwise. And there's people doing with great Kickstarters, making great things that couldn't be made otherwise. But you do have to have a campaign. You have to put together a cool trailer and have rewards. Rewards are essential now. And it really, really, really helps if you're someone famous and you have that clout and you've done something that people can refer to. And certainly I've done things that people have heard of before. I think the simple answer is it's what I said before, that no money comes without strings. And I didn't want to be beholden to a few hundred or a few thousand strangers, and I didn't want to take their money sort of on good faith without proving my own ability. I'd never done professional coding before. I'd never done really professional game design before. And I had money saved up. I was willing to put my savings, invest in myself, and allow my dad to invest in myself, and just ride on that. And I had a lot of people around me, friends in the game development community in Adelaide, who were very supportive. And I felt like I owe them, and I don't need to owe lots of strangers around the world. But that said, Kickstarter's always an option. It's maybe further down the road.
Also, can I just do a quick follow?
Oh, part two.
I'm just wondering, why didn't you work as a freelance artist or something at the side, just to sort of keep yourself funded in that way? Since
I was. Who here has been a freelance artist? All right, could you live off of it? Okay, okay, one semi, one yes. It's really hard. I mean, I was doing some freelance work while I was working on HackyCat, and I actually felt like that year, which was about my 9th year in the game development industry, that's maybe the first year that I could have really lived off of freelance if I wanted to. Because, I mean, this is kind of digressing, but freelancing is a lot about networking and connections and people, right? It's about getting to know, getting clients to find out about you, and then getting them happy enough to give you a decent amount of money, and then maybe do more projects, and for them to tell other people that you're really good. And so that actually takes a lot of experience. It doesn't hurt to get your feet dirty in that when you've just graduated or when you're just starting out, but it's really tough to live off of that. I got a question down here.
Next question should be right up at the top.
Yeah.
So you talked about how you didn't use the cat sounds that the sound designer created. I'm assuming there must have been other sounds that the sound designer created. But it struck me interestingly that you had a rev share agreement with the sound designer instead of paying up front. How did you feel about that after everything was said and done? And how much of the sound did the sound designer make other than those cats?
Sure.
That you didn't use?
So the majority of the sound in the game are still his sounds, and they're great. A lot of them are just. A lot of times he did the perfect sound right off the bat, no revisions needed, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's exactly what I needed. And sometimes they needed feedback, and we talked about it, and he got something great. And even though we had this revenue share agreement, I felt like the sounds just weren't quite right, even after several revisions. And what I actually did was, with this laptop, I just went into it, and just pitched them up a little bit. And then he said to me, "Oh, that's great, just use that." So no professional microphone involved. I'm sorry if it doesn't have the boom boom for you, but that's what you're going to get. There's two layers. There's the kick sounds and there's the cat sounds. And so I think for the generic cat sounds, there's 6 or 7 variations, and I think about the same for the kicks. So they randomize in that way. And yes, I did have to write it myself in Unity. And that was fun. That was fun to do. Any more questions? One up there.
I was thinking you sort of found a balance between exciting stuff, your own stuff, and the
getting paid for it.
Getting paid by taking like a year off. Do you see yourself continuing to do that? And do you think that a lot of artists in the industry have to do that to be able to go on?
That's an interesting question. I feel very, very lucky that I've been given lots and lots of opportunities. And, you know, some might say that it's because I worked hard or that I'm talented. I don't really believe in talent. I think it's like a lot of it's just working hard and working smartly, so improving on things that you're not good at. And it's often been that I get 2 or 3 good choices every year about where do you want to take things. And so when the time came where like a project ended or maybe my time at a company ended, it's like, what do you want to do? And so I've been very lucky to be able to do different things. So right now, I missed working at a company and having colleagues and having working hours. And so that's why I'm working at Us2. And I have really talented people that I'm learning new things from, and we're striking out into new territory, making what I think is going to be the best game I've ever made. But I don't think I'll necessarily be there forever. I'd like to maybe make another game by myself. Maybe I won't make games. Maybe I will, you know, do a children's book or a comic or something else entirely. I think, you know, it's all a big adventure. It's all a series of adventures, hopefully.
I also have to ask you, is that Drinky Crow?
No, that's not.
It just looks a lot like him.
Yeah, if you put them side to side, they're not. I was just, what's his name? Drinky Crow. Drinky Crow. Yeah, I was not aware of Drinky Crow until recently, actually. But no, that's just our crow person. He's pretty cool. If I have a build of Monument Valley with me here, so if you track me down, I'll let you see our work in progress.
Can I add that you're going to be at the party tonight?
I'm going to be at the party tonight.
Yes, so if you have the shiny button, you can come there as well, and then you can try Ken's game.
Yep. Part 3 of a question? Yeah?
Inquisitor. No. I'm also wondering, what was the hardest part about creating a game totally on your own? What was the definite, just...
The hardest thing about working with a team was working with the team. So I can't speak for everyone here, but for me, like, I don't like people that much, and so when you need people to, you know, help make your game, and they really want to make a great game too, but they have a different idea of how to do it. That's difficult, and sometimes you just don't get your way, and you have to say, you know what, that's fine. Let's not make magenta, but let's get along and reach the finish line. It is really hard to just finish a game, and so that was hard, and it's still hard. It's still hard, the people aspect, and then sort of ironically or conversely, the hardest thing about making a game by myself was being by myself and being alone in a room, which I like. I like coding by myself in a room, or, you know, drowning in Photoshop for hours in a room. But you go a little bit crazy, and so you need to talk to other people and just to keep yourself sane. And I feel really gifted to have had both of these opportunities and to be able to compare them, and then being allowed to come and speak to you guys is also really great. Anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can ask a question.
I was just wondering if you would recommend this to especially people that are thinking about creating art for games, that they actually do take a little time to look into the programming, to level design and everything. Do you recommend that, or is that taking on too much?
That's a really great question. I would say that, again, following on from Jory and Alex, it's kind of what your natural calling is. I think some people are naturally curious and a little bit, they're actually like to do many different things, and they don't know what to do with themselves, and they want to have multiple careers. And certainly I'm like that. I like to dabble in lots of different things. And some people are just great at doing one thing, and they enjoy perfecting that. And if anything, like the larger teams and perhaps the traditional industry supports sort of single-skilled people better, where you can get really good at just compositing or just lighting or just doing certain aspects of game design. And when working on your own, it really helps to have multiple skills so that you can... But you do have to have this dialogue with yourself. You have to say, like, you know, the programmer in me wants to do this, and the artist in me wants to do this, but what is sort of best for the whole thing? You're shaking your head. Sorry, did I not answer your question?
I want to take control of the microphone, but I just... Do you feel that you've become a better team player after having had the experience?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe it's made me a little more arrogant because I think I know how programming works. And so when a programmer says, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm like, are you sure? Because I've programmed before. I'm just an artist, but I can code too. So I have to keep myself in check, and that's hard for me. That's my challenge, is to not try and control everything and work with people. And I think you'd have to ask the people who work with me, am I easier to work with now? I think so.
I would argue that as a freelancer, the more things you can actually do and do decently or well, the more valuable you are to clients, and that you'll get more jobs. I would definitely say I get jobs because of my ability to not just do sound, but also implement, write code and not be afraid to touch things that most sound people don't want to get their hands dirty with. So whether you're an artist or a programmer or a sound person or anything else, the more you're capable of doing, the more valuable you are. And I agree that the traditional model, if you are inside a big company, they definitely don't value as much people who are Jacks or Jills of all trades. They definitely want you to focus on just your job and do two jobs.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it.
I think everybody wants some air.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
And I just want to add that for those of you who don't have the button and are not going to the party tonight, I believe Ken is going to be at the party tomorrow as well, which is open for everyone. So don't worry if Ken wants you to. You can try his game then as well.